By the end of tomorrow, many members of the New Orleans Saints will be headed off on one final vacation before the 2024 fall campaign begins in earnest. While there are nearly as many questions as answers at this point in mid-June, there are two fewer, it seems, as star running back Alvin Kamara and cornerback Marshon Lattimore are back in the fold. We'll ask our own NOLA.com Saints editor Zach Ewing if all is right in the world with those two, and dive deeper into minicamp, as well as maybe talk a little bit more about the schedule. Also, this morning, we will share the breaking news about the passing of an NBA legend and answer the question of what do Joey Chestnut and Caitlin Clark have in common on today's Extra Point. All that and more coming up next on the Dattitude podcast.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where you at, New Orleans? And hello to my friends elsewhere, everywhere, out there, counting the days until NFL opening day. It is 88 to be exact for Saints fans. However, it's only 2 more days until vacation. That's what I'm counting. Maybe the bigger question will be when you start counting the days until the 2025 season. Did he just say that? And I had someone tell me in a comment earlier this week, this was the most negative podcast they have ever listened to. I mean, the dude obviously was a first-time listener. As Phil says in the open, I tell it the way it is, or at least the way that I think it is. I'm not going to blow roses and sunshine up someone's keister if they're sold out of roses and sunshine at the Roses and Sunshine store. Just not going to do it. You know what we're not out of? We have plenty of Dattitude, and it's here on a special episode. I don't know how special it is, but it's episode number 250, and it's presented by Evangeline Securities for a Wednesday, June the 12th, 2024. You know by now. I am your host, Jim Derry. Whether you are watching on one of our NOLA.com social media channels or listening to the pod, as always, I thank you for being a part of the Dattitude family and be a part of this show, because you can be a part of this show. If you're watching it live, we have comments in the queue. What is up, my friend Jerry? 2 days until your birthday. It's no days until a special person in my life, their birthday. I'm going to get to that in just a minute. So happy birthday to you, Jerry. And you can be here Friday, our last show before vacation. I will wish you a happy birthday on the air, most certainly. And if you want to be a part of this show, all you have to do, like Jerry did, is type in a comment. If you're watching live on YouTube, our growing YouTube channel, whether you're watching on X, whether you're watching on Facebook, we thank all of you for watching. We will show your comments up here on the screen as we go along. And if you're watching or listening after the fact, and you want to be a part of the show, and you want me to read a comment like I did earlier, talking about the my new friend, apparently, who says I'm the most negative podcast host in history, you can reach me, jderry@theadvocate.com. We are played also wherever you get your podcasts, every major podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, and more. And a reminder to subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page if you haven't done so already. They're coming in bunches. Mike Detillier will do that with people. Zach Ewing come on a little bit later. We'll see how much popularity Zach has. You know, if he doesn't get to the numbers that Detillier has, I'm going to let him know. I'm going to give him a little of the business, as they used to say. Today, before we get to any news or anything, there is only one huge note of breaking news in the Derry household. That is the birthday of a particular spouse of a Dattitude host. So I guess that's me. My wife, Drea Derry. Happy birthday. She says the leprechauns came down again last night and told her that she will be 29 again. We have a 26-year-old son, so I don't know how that's possible. But look, hey, whatever. I don't know what she's going to do when he's 30. She'll just keep saying it. The little one believes her, by the way. The little one believes that she's still 29. The other one keeps nagging her and telling her real age, which I'm not going to spout out on the air here. There is sad breaking news this morning. Jerry West, NBA legend, dies at the age of 86. Many of you know, although it's never been officially corroborated, the NBA logo designed after the great Jerry West, all the accomplishments that he has made to the NBA, and obviously the Los Angeles Lakers, selected to the Basketball Hall of Fame 3 different times for his role in basketball. That's kind of hard to do. College basketball, member of the Lakers, and then an executive afterwards. He was the 3rd player in NBA history to reach 25,000 points. He was a 12-time All-NBA player. He was the NBA Finals MVP on a losing team in 1969. The Lakers went to the finals 9 times with him on the team, and then after he was done playing, he built the Showtime teams back in the 80s. Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy, just to name a few. So RIP to Jerry West, absolutely a legend in the National Basketball Association, for sure. And he will be missed. All right, before we move on with the monologue, give me a second. I want to tell you about happier things. You might be thinking about retirement. You may own a business out there. You may be thinking about a lot of things. Give me a second to tell you about my friends at Evangeline Securities and tell you how they can help you figure out the rest of your life. What are you talking about there? How can they help me figure out the rest of my life? Well, just give me a second. If you're pondering selling your business or even know someone who is in this situation, then you will need to get in touch with my new friends, managing directors Nick Braden and Ron Hemelt over at Evangeline. Why? Because they came home from New York to open offices across the street from the Dome on Poydras Street and in Lafayette to use their expertise to help the people they love in a market that truly needs it. But what can they do for you, you ask? Well, they'll start you off with a complimentary service that includes a detailed evaluation of your business to figure out its worth. And if you decide to proceed, Nick and Ron will find you a buyer by beginning that extensive auction process that I've been telling you about. It involves established private equity funds from around the world, the entire world. They will maximize the return process for the founder of your company and the founder's family so that you can move on to the next chapter of your life. Like spending time with the ones you love, on a beach towel in Hawaii, drinking wine in Italy, traveling the NFL circuit, seeing all 32 NFL stadiums in 5 months. Is that possible? If it is, Nick and Ron are going to help you find out. Please let me know if it is. Maybe we'll come up with some more options for you later when we continue the story before today's extra point. In the meantime, you can check them out at www.evangelinesecurities.com. Also, besides there are a ton of June 12th birthdays out there. We already saw Jerry is June 14th. What is it with the middle of June? What happened 9 months ago? I mean, Halloween? Or before Halloween? I don't know. I have no idea. Whatever it is, there's a lot of June 12th birthdays out there. A good friend, Paul Haley, his birthday is today as well. Of course, my wife, Drea, has a twin, Donnie. Her birthday's today, of course, duh. But, Paul, an interesting story there, real quick. His wife, Amy, is one of my wife's best friends. They met a long time ago. Anyway, she's the nanny to my youngest daughter. But her husband, Paul, we're all great friends. Paul and Drea were born in the same hospital on the same exact day. Found out, I think they met when they were 18 or 19 or something along those lines. Crazy. And they're good friends. So anyway, we have other breaking news this morning. LSU, thanks Gabe Henderson for this news. They're adding former Wofford pitcher Camden Wicker via the transfer portal. We already told you that LSU is going to be knee deep in the portal. There's no question. I mean, we talked about all the players they're going to lose or in the process of losing. They're going to be going deep in the portal. So adding a pitcher, Wofford pitcher Camden Wicker. Sav, happy birthday, Drea. You're actually shocked that Lattimore showed up. I don't think I'm shocked. We're going to talk about that with Zach. Does it mean that all is right in the world now that Lattimore and Kamara are back? We're going to talk about that with Zach. Minicamp ends tomorrow. We're going to talk about what's going on in Minicamp. That's all coming up. Tell you about my extra point. Some of you will go, yeah, Derry, you're 100% right. And some of you will say, you're an idiot. It's one of those. There's not going to be any in-betweens with today's extra point. But that's what we do here. We tell you what we think. You don't have to like it. We don't have to agree. But we're going to tell you what we think. That's coming up. NBA Finals resume tonight. I'm all over the place this morning. Celtics up 2-0. Porzingis has this rare injury. Dude, what's up with that? Is that going to affect the Celtics at all? We'll find. I don't think so. This could be a sweep, man. I mean, this really could be. And we'll see if Luka's been great and it hasn't mattered at all. The Celtics just don't care. And look, I was dumb enough to think that the Mavs could make. I thought they could make a series out of this thing. They just haven't so far. Even in game 2, it was close for a half. And okay, maybe this is the game. And the Celtics just did what the Celtics do. They started to pull away a little bit, right? It is. If you hear that noise in the background, by the way, it's my lawn guy apparently likes to come on either a Monday or a Wednesday, and he likes to come at 11 o'clock in the morning. So if you hear that in the background, it is. It's better than me cutting the grass in 90-degree heat. I'll pay a few bucks here and there. He's pretty cheap. So, but anyway, Mavs Celtics, I don't know. I don't know if the Mavs can win a game or not. I think tonight, obviously, they have to win. It's a must win, but I think you're going to find out more about them in their fight, because I think if they win like a nail biter, you're biting your fingernails kind of game, I don't think that bears well for them, right? I think they need to win one by like double digits and know that they can, beat this Celtics team and really beat them. I think even if they win one by 2, 4, 6 points, whatever, I think they still lose in 5. But I'm going to tell you right here, I'm going to predict a sweep. I don't think they're going to win a game, which means go bet your money on the Mavs tonight, because I said that. Other news this week we never got to. How about, this was not official, I don't think, when we were on the air Monday, but how about South Carolina luring Paul Maneri, a former guest on this show? Paul Maneri is coming out of retirement at 66 years old. Look, I'll power to him. Maybe we'll have him back on the show when we come back from vacation, or maybe next spring we can have him on the show. He's definitely been a friend here. I've talked to him a few times, done stories on Coach Maneri. I wish him well. I mean, you can't necessarily be happy for South Carolina, but they fired Mark Kingston after 7 seasons. South Carolina was 37-25 this past season, finished 13-17 in the SEC. That's terrible. Oh, wait. I think someone else did something similar to that. Difference is Kingston was there for 7 seasons. The difference is that LSU was a lot hotter down the stretch and played a lot better baseball. But LSU and South Carolina, they had their moments, didn't they? Jerry, thank you for wishing a happy birthday to my wife, Drea. And Mike, what's up, people from St. Landry Parish? Gabe says one better put $1.5 million in the Celtics money line tonight at plus 105. I would have to have a lot of. I don't think I would bet $1.5 million on anything, even if I had Gail Benson's money. I don't think I would bet that much on one. I just don't. I don't think I could. I'm too cheap to do that. I mean, I like spending money, but that's a little crazy. Let's ask someone else if he would. I know the answer to this. I don't even need to ask him, but I'm going to ask him anyway. Zach Ewing, what's up?
You haven't dropped $1.5 million on anything lately, Jim?
Let's say you were a billionaire, okay? Let's say you literally had $1 billion in the bank, and you were obviously retired and drinking pina coladas on the beach somewhere. Would you ever bet $1.5 million on anything?
No. I mean, that's even if I had $1 billion.
I know you wouldn't.
No. I mean, because at that level, you're better off. And this is the most boring answer. Like your viewership is just going to.
It doesn't have to be exciting,
but just go put it in some low level bond or something, and the thing's going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars over the before you even think about it again.
You're thinking logically.
I mean, but that's what gambling is. It's about the rush. You want to have the rush of feeling the loss or the win. If you win or lose, like for us, that only takes $50. But for somebody with $1 billion, maybe they have to bet $1 million to get it to. I
measure it like this. Okay, so on my scale, that would be the equivalent of let's say, I don't know, $500. Okay, let's say if I bet five. I don't know.
$1 billion is 1,000 million.
I know. So I'm trying to think what it is.
1,000th of your bank account. For me, that's like what, $6? I mean, it's like
I'm not good at math, so I don't know. But my point is, we're getting way off topic of this one, but I don't care. We're just going to start the show the whatever way we want. If I bet $50 on a future and it came down to the last game, or I bet $500, I wouldn't get any more thrill, I don't think, out of winning $50 than if I won 500. But I would be a lot more devastated if I lost $500 than I would if I lost 50.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, when I bet on sports, it doesn't matter to me if I bet $5 or $20. Now, it was nice to win $100,000.
I was gonna say, when you won $100,000, you were sitting there on the edge of your seat on that last day.
Oh yeah, but when I'm sitting on the edge of my seat sometimes when I bet $10 on a game and it comes down to the wire, and you still get that little rush when you win, and you still get that little devastation when you lose. But when you're keeping it under control and you're betting the way you should bet, you're like, okay, well, $10, I can get over that. Or, okay, great, I won. That means I can make another couple bets tomorrow, but let's not get too excited. I mean, you just have to keep it in perspective.
I just think that, look, I compare it to, okay, obviously I mentioned this before, I'll mention it again. Had a great weekend with the horse race this past week, the Belmont. And I will say this. I was no more excited about that win than I was when I won, 3 weeks ago when I won $400 instead of winning more than $400. Let's just say that. I wasn't any more excited. I don't think I would have been any less disappointed. You know what I mean?
Right. It's the feeling you get, and it really is not logical exactly how much money it is. How much money it is really is in direct correlation to what you can afford to lose. That's how you should think about it.
Which is what we always stress on the show anyway, that even no matter what, excuse me, we talked about when we're in the Bayou Bets, doing Bayou Bets together, and we talked about, we were both writing about sports gambling for a living, or sports betting for a living. And we meant this, and I still mean this. I don't treat it any different today. I mean, you're supposed to do this for fun. When you're betting, it's supposed to be for fun. 100% mean don't bet more than you can afford to lose, because it's not fun then. It becomes a drag. And so I learned the hard way many, many, many years ago not to do that. So
I want to know how old Jerry is.
Yeah, Jerry, let us know. How old are you, Jerry?
Is this like a big birthday for you? You seem excited.
He is excited. He's been telling us for a couple of weeks now that his birthday's come. And I'm cool with it. Jerry, we love Jerry. So let me know. How old are you, Jerry, if you're still watching? All right, let's talk about the New Orleans Saints. And obviously the lead topic right now is Alvin Kamara and Marshon Lattimore and their return to the organization. I don't think anyone is like truly shocked that they're back. I mean, we had a commenter, my friend Sav said he was, I don't know if he said surprised or shocked that Lattimore is back. But, we've been talking, I think you and I on the draft show, we said when they moved up to draft Kool-Aid, or maybe we didn't talk about it because I wasn't on then. But when they drafted Kool-Aid, I thought that was a straight signal that Lattimore wasn't coming back and they were going to make a trade post June 1. But here we are on June 12th. They haven't done anything yet. They're probably, I would guess, they're not going to do anything before the season, although we have seen them do those sorts of things before a season. I think if they're going to trade him now, they would probably do it in season before the trade deadline if the season didn't go the way they want. But now that those two are back, do you feel better about their situations? What do you think it means overall?
I mean, sure, they're talented players, and it's never a bad thing to have more talented players in your building. We got a comment on our Saints Insider YouTube page the other day that said, the Marshon Lattimore trade talks were an invention of the media, and that is 100% not true. The Saints structured his contract, in such a way to make it easier to trade him, and he signed off on that.
No question.
They were both on board with the Saints at least exploring a trade. Now, that doesn't mean the Saints were in a hurry to get rid of Marshon Lattimore. They realize he's a talented player. Yes, he's been injured a lot. A lot of those are kind of freaky injuries. He had somebody roll over on his ankle. He has the lacerated kidney. I mean, like none of this is like soft tissue stuff or a consistent part of the body that's getting hurt where you're going, okay, like Michael Thomas ankle, that's a problem. Like that's going to be recurring. I don't think it's a huge gamble to say Marshon Lattimore could stay healthy. And if he does, he's 100% going to help you win. And if he helps you win and he stays healthy, he's also 100% going to increase his value, which could help him later in his career, could help the Saints get more for him if they decide to trade him next year. So it's really, Jeff Duncan called it kind of a marriage of convenience, and maybe it is, but I think at this point, the Saints and Marshon Lattimore are the best thing for each other. They both need each other. They both need each other to have a big year. And then if that happens, they can make their decisions and either stay together long-term or go their separate ways. But for this season, for 2024, I really think the Saints would have to be completely blown away to trade Marshon at this point. If they, somebody offers them the moon and they can get a DB back and a second round pick or something, it's like, okay, well, maybe they'd have to do it then. But at this point, I just don't see that happening. And Alvin Kamara, look, I mean, people talked about him missing OTAs. The guy has missed OTAs every year, I believe, since 2018. It's just not part of his offseason training regimen. He prefers to be in Florida where he lives, where his family lives, by himself, working with his trainer. And then he shows up for mandatory minicamp like he does every year. The only difference this year is that the Saints are installing a new offense. And so Kamara is ostensibly, a week or two behind the rest of his teammates and the rest of the running backs on that offense. But, it's like I said on Saints Insider yesterday, it's not like they're playing a game Sunday. I mean, he's got time to catch up.
There's no question. Dattitude podcast here this Wednesday morning, brought to you by Evangeline Securities. We're here with NOLA.com, Times-Picayune, and Advocate Saints editor Zach Ewing talking about minicamp. And do you think, look, one thing about Kamara and Lattimore, and I will say this, I mean, I'm not sold that Lattimore's still going to be. I call it weird intuition. I think we saw a similar weird feeling about Andrus Peat last year. And it was almost like the difference between Peat and Lattimore is Lattimore's clearly going to start and he'll be in there. If he's, as long as he's healthy, which obviously he looks like he is right now. But I just have this weird feeling that he's just not going to be there on opening day. Call it whatever you want. But that being said, in their defenses and whatever, you touched on it. But Kamara and Lattimore are kind of, they're quiet guys. They like being by themselves, it seems like. Like you said, both of these guys have missed voluntary OTAs in the past. It's not that huge of a deal that they weren't there. I don't think that's why I was concerned as much as it's just this weird feeling. Kamara, I'm certain he'll be a part of this offense. There's nothing, he'll be there. Barring injury, he's there in day one, and he'll be pretty much a similar self. Lattimore, just the whole Kool-Aid thing, to move up to draft a guy, to pick a Kool-Aid McKinstry, to move up to do it, it's not a position you really needed. Is it something that you think that maybe this is the last year for Lattimore? Although this would be the year they probably would have traded him if they were going to do it because of his salary cap structure. What do you see going forward? Are they worried that he won't want to be back? I mean, what is that situation? And again, this is pure speculation on our part.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. One is it's very possible the Saints meant to trade him and just did not like what they were getting in return. And
exactly.
So they decided at that point, okay,
that's very possible.
And Kool-Aid McKinstry, who, by the way, had off-season foot surgery, we'll bring him along for a year. We'll give him not a red shirt.
That makes sense.
I think he'll play, but then for the future, if we decide to part ways with Lattimore, we've got his replacement. The other thing is the Saints haven't had a healthy year in the defensive backfield in years.
That's also true.
Like either Lattimore gets hurt, or Paulson Adebo's been hurt, or somebody goes down, and they end up with Ugo Amadi starting.
Right.
every single year. And not that Ugo Amadi's a bad player, but he's not at the level of these other guys. I do think it works out really well if you do move on from Lattimore, because Alontae Taylor, as talented as he is, has never to me looked very comfortable in the slot. And if you can move him to the outside, assuming Lattimore goes, then Kool-Aid McKinstry, I think, is born to play the slot. And you sort of have your starting defensive cornerbacks right there. And the other thing, Paulson Adebo's only got a year left on his rookie deal. So he's at some point, the Saints either have to choose to extend him probably at a pretty big number or let him walk as well. And so I kind of disagree with the idea that they didn't need anybody. Just because you didn't immediately need a starter this year if you're keeping Lattimore. I still think it's a place you could add depth. I think the Saints saw that pick as great value. McKinstry's not going to play. He's not going to hit the field until training camp. We won't know for sure what he looks like. But from everything you hear, the guy is the real deal. And the Saints have just made themselves stronger at an area of strength, which is not a bad thing.
Well, I will say this. If you look at and we may talk, if we have time, we're going to talk schedule in a little bit just for a minute. But if you look at the first set of quarterbacks that this team's going to play early in the season, after Bryce Young, you're talking about Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Kirk Cousins, you got Patrick Mahomes. I mean, when you talk about that set of quarterbacks, you really can't have enough defensive backs. So that's certainly true when you look at that.
No, and I mean, the other related topic, and this is a sidebar, but you've just got to get the defensive line. The pass rush has got to be better, because those things, of course, work hand in hand. Yes, the defensive secondary is great. Yes, they've held this defense up through what was a pretty questionable season last year. And you can expect to rely on them a certain extent, but you just can't, especially against those guys you're talking about. They can't sit back there and give Pat Mahomes and Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts just acres of space and 10, 12 seconds of time to pick. Any secondary is going to get picked apart in that case. So they've got to do something about the pass rush.
32 sacks or whatever they had last year ain't going to cut it. They were fourth worst in the league.
And their pressure rate was down as well. It wasn't just sacks. I mean, it was not good. So to me, that's a big key. I mean, I actually, it's funny. I feel a little more optimistic about the offense this coming year, but I'm actually pretty pessimistic about the defense taking a step back. And given that with the schedule you're talking about, I think the Saints as a whole may take a step back, but I'm sure we'll talk about more big picture stuff.
Apparently to some of my listeners, I've been pessimistic about both the offense and defense, and that's just who I am. I'm a pessimistic person, apparently.
Derry Downer, baby.
Exactly. Rocky's with us. Don't worry if you're late. Grab yourself a cup of coffee and sit in. You can go catch what you missed later on. Rocky, we had a bunch of happy birthdays this morning. We talked about Jerry West. We talked about Paul Maneri. It's been an interesting morning for sure. All right, I want to ask you, staying on this topic with Kamara and Lattimore, which one do you think is more important to this team, that he is back and at this point in their careers or where the Saints are? Which one do you think is more important to the team?
Man, I'm going to say Lattimore, just because I think having a lockdown corner who can really take away the other team's top option, snap in, snap out, is huge, especially when you talk about the talent of the rest of this defensive backfield. If you can take away one side of the field, and then you've got these other guys, your Paulson Adebos, your Alontae Taylors, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Tyrann Mathieu, flying around the other side of the field, in the middle of the field, it makes life really difficult on an opposing quarterback. So I'm going to go Lattimore. I do think Kamara, it's a big year for both of them, but Kamara, like in this new offense, could he pop and kind of show us a glimpse of what he was 2-3 years ago? I think it's possible, and that would definitely be a big deal for the Saints. I also personally am really high on Kendre Miller. And so I think if Kamara doesn't necessarily pop and he does start to show his age and things like that, you've got another guy in the building who could really start to take some of the load off of him.
I absolutely think you will see Kendre Miller play a large role in this offense. You don't want Kamara to carry the ball 20 times a game. And when I say carry the ball, I mean kind of a combination, right? Because a screen pass to me isn't any different than carrying the ball. I mean, sure, you're not plowing into a line or trying to find that hole and getting met at the line every time, but I think you are going to see more screen passes. But Do you want Kamara to get 20, 22, 24 touches a game? No, you want to spread it out a little bit more, because when you get, I talk about that age 30, Kamara is going to be 29. It's not that far off. So as much of a load as you can take off of him, the fresher he's going to be later in the season if you are able to succeed.
Yeah, if you're interested in this topic, I'd encourage everybody to go find our Saints Insider podcast yesterday,
for sure.
Because it was all Lattimore and Kamara. It's saintsonnola.com YouTube channel. Small plug, but we go into it. And one thing about Alvin is that I think he was really miscast the last couple of years, and they did throw him passes. I mean, I think he led the team in receptions last year. He was very close with Olave. I mean, he did catch a lot of passes, but a lot of those were more safety valves. Just throwing the ball out there because you had nowhere else to go with it and picking up 2 yards. What was the game where he had like 17 catches for 33 yards or something? It's just totally ridiculous. I can't even remember what game it was, but
you see that, that's pretty much a loss probably.
Yeah. But when I say he's miscast, I mean, think about how many carries he got last year where he was expected to go over left guard or right guard,
right,
left tackle, right tackle, and just kind of plow into the line and like be this bell cow Derrick Henry type running back. That's not Alvin Kamara. I mean, come on, get him out in space. And we saw it at minicamp yesterday. I was out at practice yesterday. They're trying all sorts of stuff. They're running wide. They're running zone schemes. They're getting these running backs out in space. They're faking to one and handing to the other. You're going to see a lot more 2 running back sets. And so I do think there's a chance that Kamara could end up being, kind of have this mid-career renaissance and really show what he was before. I do worry about the age. I mean, I do think his long run, and again, we talked about this yesterday in the podcast, but his long run of the season last year was 17 yards.
Yep.
I don't care who you are or what scheme you're in. If you're not showing more explosiveness than that, I think you've lost a step, and I think he has. So we'll see about that. I mean, I think the scheme will help. Whether it brings him back to being a Pro Bowler, I have concerns about that.
2 games last year where he had double-digit receptions. He had 12 catches for 91 yards in a loss against Jacksonville. He had 13 catches for 33 yards in the 26-9 loss to Tampa Bay. So there you go. It seems like the more catches he gets, the more that, I mean, I'm looking at these wins here and I'm going from last to first, but Tampa Bay had 2 catches. They won. They beat the Giants. He had 5 catches. They beat Carolina. He had 3 catches. They beat the Bears. He had 4 catches. They beat the Colts. He had 4 catches. So it seems like the fewer passes he catches. I mean, I know you're not the kind of guy who correlates things like that all the time, but I don't know. You look through that, and that's an interesting stat.
I just think it was a safety valve for them so much that if they were doing that a ton, it meant that they were in trouble.
It's not like when Breeze was doing it.
Yeah, and I do need to correct myself. Olave did lead the team. He had 87 catches last year. Kamara had 75. But I think, like, if you had looked at those numbers on Thanksgiving or beginning of December, I think Kamara actually was in the lead, and Olave had a couple of big games.
I agree.
Late.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So that's what I'm
like. Well, like I told you, yeah. Well, I mean, one of those double-digit catches was the Jacksonville game, which was that right before Thanksgiving, or right? It was either right before
Thursday night game, week 7 or 8.
Yeah, somewhere along there. All right, Jim Derry here with Zach Ewing on this Wednesday morning Dattitude podcast presented by Evangeline Securities. As Zach said, you can check him out and all of our Saints crew on the Saints Insider podcast here presented by The Advocate on the Saints. What is it? Which the YouTube page?
It's saintsonnola.com is the actual name of the channel. But if you search Saints Insider, you'll get to the right place. And
most of you have found them, and that's quite honestly, it's probably how a lot of you have found us here at Dattitude. But they do. What days do you guys? It's not set in stone, right? You're about to go on vacation.
It's normally Wednesday and/or Friday. This week we did Tuesday. A couple of us are leaving town. Minicamp first day, it was yesterday. We decided to do it. There will be another episode Friday. In the off season, it's a little bit intermittent, but we're gonna have boots on the ground in Irvine for training camp. So we'll do some live shows from there, and post game shows every week too. So follow us. And
Luke will be on this show as well on Friday morning as well. So Luke's gonna be busy on Friday for sure. Okay, some other mini camp notes. What is there anything else that you've taken out of minicamp that maybe either you like or bothers you? Let's start with a couple for me that, and I'll see if it matters. See, Brian Brisset has not been a part of camp. Ryan Ramczyk, we're starting to see, I think, more and more that it's all. I don't want to say it's a certainty, but it's getting close to near certainty that at the bare minimum, he's not going to be ready in September. Whether that lasts beyond that. But anyway, just talk about your concerns first.
Yeah, I mean, we dig into Ramczyk a little bit on yesterday's show too. I just think at this point he may be unofficially retired. I'm not. You don't want to close the door for sure. I mean, we don't know. We're not the guy's doctor. We don't see the medical reports, but it sure seems to me like they're keeping him on the roster in a just in case he can make it back fashion. And also because if he retires, I believe that means they've got to pay him all of his guaranteed money now, which could mess up their salary cap. So there may be reasons for both sides to kind of, and he'll get more money if he stays on the roster. So it's worth it to him too. But at this point, man, I don't see how that's even something that they can count on one bit.
I'm sorry, Zach. I don't either. And the reason why, just real quick, is because, no one's seen to hide or hair or even talk to him or whatever. So to me, that's kind of red flags.
Yeah. Brian Brisset wasn't there yesterday. He has been in OTAs. So don't think we heard what the reason for that is. Juwan Johnson was also missing yesterday. Yeah. Now that could be those guys just had something going on today or yesterday and they're back today. So we don't know yet. Practice is actually going on right now. And you can't, the way it works for media at practice is we're all allowed to go out there and watch, and none of us are allowed to tweet or write any stories or anything until practice is over. And then that kind of opens the floodgates. So we won't know until practice is over if they were back today, or, maybe Dennis Allen will say what happened to them or why they're not there. A lot of times teams will excuse. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is not at minicamp for the Jets, and he has an excused absence. So I don't know. I don't think it's a big deal. It's minicamp. Look, I mean, in some ways we talk about this because it's the only thing to talk about for like 3 months about the Saints. And so we put huge emphasis on 3 days. I'm not too concerned about that. But obviously you'd like to see those guys out there. Other concerns, I mean, look, this team is going to they're not going any further than the offensive line and defensive line can take them. And that's like the old football cliche. Every high school coach will tell you that. Junior high coaches will tell you that. But it's true. And those are the areas of concern. If you knew that this team was going to have a top 10 O-line, top 10 D-line, all of a sudden the rest of the pieces look pretty dang good. I mean, is Derek Carr a top 5 quarterback in the NFL? No, but he's good enough if you have a top 10 O-line. Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. We talked about the defensive backfield. Demario Davis at linebacker. I mean, like, you feel really good about those pieces if you knew the trench play was going to hold up. I just don't think it is.
Gabe is saying back there that at Fanatics, not sure what that is. The Saints are the only team not to receive a bet to win the conference. Every other AFC and NFC team has received a bet. And no, same with the Super Bowl at BetMGM. It's one thing. I don't know what that means.
Look, I don't. These places. It's coming from the sports betting background. You and I both know, some of these cherry picked facts. Gabe and I had talked about that before. I think a few weeks ago. Well, MGM also has the worst Super Bowl odds in the market on the Saints.
They do.
So if you were one of those people who wanted to bet on the Saints to win the Super Bowl, you're going to shop around and you're not going to bet at MGM. So, I take it with a grain of salt. I will say expectations are at the lowest they've been in New Orleans for,
no doubt,
you know, but 10 years at least.
Oh, more than that. I'd say this is the lowest
since 05. Yeah.
And 05, I don't think anyone was really thinking about the Saints because of Katrina and whatever. I mean, you give them a pass, but I mean, going into any of Hazlitt's later seasons, there wasn't a whole lot of expectations.
Maybe 06, Jim. I don't know. I mean, I don't think expectations were real.
No, yeah, but there wasn't this vitriol, I guess, going into 06. You had a new coach. It's like I tell people, look, I I get look, people say that I'm negative. Well, here's something that's positive. And I've said this before. If you're a fan, I don't care if you don't like Dennis Allen or you don't like Derek Carr or whatever. You could be down on those guys all you want. But if you're a fan, you should have hope. Just because I tell you that I think the Saints are going to go 6-11 this year doesn't mean that I don't hope they go 11-6 and win the division. And I think they can. I'm not saying they will. I don't think they will, but I certainly think that they can. I think they have the talent to potentially do that. It's just going to be a tough thing to do. But if you're a fan, I don't understand why you would go into the season. I've seen people say stupid things like, oh, God, I hope they go 0-6 and fire. First of all, they're not going to fire Dennis Allen in the middle of the season. Second of all, it doesn't make any sense to torture yourself because you're still going to watch whatever you say. You're still going to watch. So why would you want to go through that?
Well, I think it's self-protection, right? Like, I'm not a Saints fan because I cover the team. It's not my role, but I'm a Mariners fan in baseball, right? And I can't tell
I'm a
you
Cubs fan.
Yeah, I can't tell you the number of times I've texted my buddies who are friends and said, screw this team. I'm not watching this crap anymore. And you just,
right.
Fine, screw them. I hope but you're not, you're saying that.
You're really going to do that.
Exactly. What you're hoping is that you're like jinxing the team somehow or anti-jinxing the team, and that you're going to check an hour later on your phone and be like, oh my God, they won the game. Oh my God. And then you go look up the highlights. Like, that's what you're hoping for. I mean, let's be real here. We don't watch sports hoping our teams lose.
Of course not.
What would be the point of that? The only time that would make sense to me is a situation like, the Bears had a couple of years ago where, man, if we lose this game, we get the number one pick. And if we win, nothing happens. Why would you not hope to lose that particular game? But even then, it's kind of a weird, more like you're just at peace with either outcome.
Right.
You still like to see them win. You just, the Mariners had a season where they could have gotten Steven Strasburg. They were in line to get the number one pick in the next year's draft, and they swept the A's in the last weekend of the season and got the number 2 pick instead, and ended up with Dustin Ackley, who never amounted to anything. And you go, like, why did you have to sweep that series? But you still had fun watching them win the games.
I have never once rooted against my team for any reason ever, and I can't foresee a situation, even if it meant the first draft pick, the number 1 draft pick or the number 2 draft. I can't foresee. I just can't root against my team. Gabe says he turned off the Astros scoring notifications earlier this year, but he still checks them every night.
That's
and I was here working last night in my office, Zach, and I had the Cubs game on. Okay, they were winning 2-1 going into the bottom of the ninth. I had that feeling that Cubs fans say. I don't have it every game, but I had it last night. They get a runner on, they score a run, and it's 2-2. And I almost turned it off. I knew Brandon Lau's coming up, and I'm like, this isn't good. He hadn't had a hit all night. They made it a point to say he was 0 for 4 and he blah, 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 blah. Sure enough, game-winning home run. And I knew it was coming. I still watched it. I mean, you watch.
Yeah, you do. And I mean, like, I understand watching less because it's frustrating you, and that's not good for anybody. But that doesn't mean you don't hope they turn it around. So this is kind of a long tangent of saying, like, and look, the offseason is the time to be optimistic. Maybe we should talk about things we're optimistic
That's
about.
where I was going next, for sure.
Like, I think the offense looks really good now. It's the second day.
What do you like about it? What do you see that leads you to believe that this is better? I mean, I don't see how it could be. I mean, I'm not talking about numbers wise, because numbers wise it could be worse, but they still look better and give you hope for the future. I'm just saying, what gives you optimism that they are going to be a much better unit?
I think part of it is that you just have faith in this system helping quarterbacks. It has throughout the evolution of this offense. I mean, Clint Kubiak, Brock Purdy became a superstar in this offense, and I'm not putting Brock Purdy down, but Derek Carr has much more arm talent than Brock Purdy does. Now, whether he's as good of a processor or whatever, maybe not, but the fact of the matter is you have the pieces in place to make something like this really work. If the offensive line can hold up and if those shifts can hold up. But yeah, I mentioned the 2-back sets. I think you can be really creative out of those sets when you have players like Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill. I mean, imagine Derek Carr flanked by Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill, and you're the defense. You gotta have somebody covering both of those guys out of the backfield. You then have to worry about tight ends and receivers as usual. Either one of those guys could get a handoff. It could be any sort of fake back there because any of those guys may end up with the ball. I feel like what Clint Kubiak's offense is going to do is take the pieces that were in place and stress the defense, maybe pre-snap more than Pete Carmichael's defense ever did or offense ever did. And that's the difference to me, is just a little bit of creativity. It may not work. Again, it's June. June is the time for optimism. But I also think that they're attacking the middle of the field, at least just from looking at team drills and practice. They're attacking the middle of the field a lot more than we ever saw Carmichael. Everything was very perimeter based. They would throw into the sideline, and sometimes it worked. But those throws over the middle of the field oftentimes are right there. And it could certainly be an offense where if it's working, you're going to 2 yards here, 6 yards here, 4 yards here. Boom. As soon as they sneak up, you hit a big play. Rashid Shaheed made an unbelievable catch from Jake Haener in practice yesterday. Just put on a double move on the DB. I didn't even see who the DB was, and then made a sliding catch in the corner of the end zone. Just phenomenal play. And it's one of those things where you could start to see the secondary creep up, because the 3 plays before that, they had hit quick hitters over the middle or ran the ball. And now all of a sudden that's open. So I think the creativity, I think the play calling has a chance to be better. We'll see. Like you said, that the offensive numbers didn't end up terrible last year. So I don't know how much
12th in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't know if statistical improvement is going to be there, but part of the reason they ended up 12th in the NFL is because they were playing catch up in so many games, especially late in the year, and they would put up these big numbers in games that they barely won or lost, and that helps your overall statistics, but that's not really indicative of good offense.
Well, here's why I'm optimistic about why I think the offense will be better, or at least, well, we know the reason why they won't be better. They won't be better because of the O-line, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Why they will be better, if you're looking for a reason for optimism, is Clint Kubiak is going to be an authoritative presence on that sideline. And I think that this team has lacked that since Peyton left, at least on the offensive side of the ball. That is something that they desperately need. And, Derek Carr, especially, you saw him get frustrated, especially in the early part of the season into the middle part of the season, because I think he felt like he was banging his head against a wall sometimes. And now I think that he'll go over and they'll be definitive, this is what we want to do. And I think that is going to mean a lot for this team. I think it's something that they've desperately needed for the past couple of years.
Yeah, Clint Kubiak's a quiet guy.
But when he right, go ahead.
You see him kind of commanding things out there on the practice field. And again, we tend to overinflate everything from OTAs and minicamp because it's the only time we get to see the team for 9 months, 8 months, and we're trying to grab onto anything. But when the team came out of a huddle, and Kubiak didn't like the cadence of how they came out of a huddle in OTAs, he made them go back and do it again. When they lined up and one guy was just a yard off of where he should have been, he made him start all over and do it again. That's the kind of coaching that is going to get results, right? Like, you have to be careful with that. You don't want to frustrate guys and make them, make them hate you. But that's got to be music to some Saints fans' ears. Like, it's a new offense. They're still technically installing it. And yet I didn't see yesterday a single false start. I didn't see, they didn't have to rehuddle yesterday. I mean, they seem to kind of have their stuff together, and that's got to be music to Saints fans' ears. I think the offense could be much more efficient, much more balanced, and really put the game more in the hands of its stars than they were able to do last year. And so I think all that's positive. Like I said, I'm pretty optimistic about the offense, with the major caveat of we don't get to see how the lines perform in minicamp. I mean, they line up in team drills, and the offensive and defensive linemen kind of go like this and kind of touch each other's shoulder pads and then stop. So we don't get to see how that's going to work. There's going to be hiccups. That first game against Carolina, they're going to do something where everybody goes, "What the hell are they doing?" That's just natural. But I do think there's reason to be bullish on the offense.
7 to 10 more minutes or so here with Zach this morning on the Dattitude podcast. So if you want to get your comment or a question in, now's the time to do it, because we're going to be moving on before too long. All right, I want to ask you one thing that we've talked about in the show. I think you guys have talked about it. Other people have talked about it. Is in this system, here's another reason to be optimistic, maybe. Personnel wise, I don't think this offensive line is even as good as it was last year, and that's saying something. Okay, but it's been said, it's been talked about by many, again, not just me or you guys or whatever, but in this system, maybe the offensive line doesn't have to be as good as you needed them to be in a Sean Payton offensive system. That's not to say that you can stink up the joint and just let Derek Carr be bum rushed every game, but maybe they don't have to be as good.
I agree with that to a certain extent. I think people thought of the offensive line as the 49ers' weak point on their offense last year, and they performed just fine, obviously. So you can get away. You don't necessarily need this all-pro offensive line like the Eagles have had. I do think Derek Carr performs much better when he's protected. The numbers bear that out. Now, this is a timing-based offense. Maybe that changes. Maybe you don't need it. Look, it can't be a revolving door. Trevor Penning can't be as bad as he was last year. They're going to need him. I think Talifuanga looks really good. Again, you can't grade line play very well in these offseason practices because they're not really doing anything. But just as far as footwork and things like that, he looks more athletic than anything they've had before. Not anything they've had before, but anything they had last year, say. He looks more fluid. It doesn't look like switching to the left is bothering him much. I mean, I think he's really a foundational piece for them. We know Cesar Ruiz struggled last year a little bit, but he's been solid throughout his career. We know Eric McCoy is solid. That's 3 pieces right there. Now, 3/5 is not good enough. You're going to have to figure something else out at those other spots. But I
mean, is Nick Saldiveri really ready to play left guard?
I don't know. I mean, none of us know, right? Like when they drafted him out of Old Dominion, the plan was never for him to play last year. And then he also had an injury. So I don't think you can look at it and be like, well, he couldn't even get on the field last year. He was one of those guys, like they drafted Josiah Isiram this year out of a smaller school. They're not planning on playing him this year. They're going to keep him on the active roster. He may get a snap here or there when it's needed for injuries or in late game situations. But the plan is to just have him learn for a year. And that's what Nick Saldiveri did in 2023. And the expectation now is that he's going to play a role. And if that's the starting role, or if that's just, he's kind of the swing guard and can, be the guy who comes in when somebody else gets banged up or whatever, it remains to be seen. But he's an athletic guy too. I mean, I do think there's something to be said. You said the talent's not as good as last year. You've basically swapped out Ryan Ramczyk and Anders Pete for Talifuanga and Nick Saldiveri, and then you've swapped out James Hurst for, maybe it's Hurst for Saldiveri, and then you throw Penning in there. I mean, talent-wise, prove-it-wise, those guys haven't proved it, but they are younger, they are more athletic. I think it has a chance.
As David says here, whether I agree or not, doesn't matter at this point. A much more athletic O-line, young Bucks can, and I predict under this offensive system will, with the new coordinator. Hey, that's the definition of optimism, right? I am not nearly as optimistic, but again, that's why I say they have the capability. They can. It's possible. It's not like I've gone into many seasons thinking this team is going to stink, and they've stunk. Going into seasons thinking I don't know how this team loses, and they end up being pretty decent. But I just think this is so much bearing on the early part of the season. We've talked about it over and over again, and I'm going to throw this schedule up for those who haven't seen it 1,000 times. But it's all about what happens early in the season, Zach. I mean, it's you can't go 1-4. You certainly can't go 1-5. And to me, I'm not saying the Saints will. I'm not predicting that they're going to go 1-5. But just as there are reasons for optimism, there are also reasons for pessimism, and that's not a scenario where 1-5 is out of the question.
No, it's not. And if they go 1-5 or 2-7 or whatever it is to start, the wheels could come off really fast. Then the noise around Dennis Allen's job is going to get really loud. This is not a franchise historically that has made midseason coaching changes and things like that. And frankly, we've talked about this. I don't know who would even be the interim coach. I suppose it would be Darren Rizzi, but it's not even a team where you have somebody on the coaching staff where you would say, okay, that guy's going to shepherd us to the end of the season, and then we'll figure out what to do. You can do that with Clint Kubiak in his first year.
Exactly. And
Joe
then
Woods
that's
the second year as coordinator.
And what happens, Zach, if it does look better, they lose some squeakers, they still stink, they're 1-5 or they're 2-4 or like you say 2-6 or whatever, they get off to this bad start and Allen does leave, but Kubiak shows promise, but you bring in another coach and you don't know if they're going to jive with Kubiak. I don't know. There's so many more repercussions about, to me, this season is so important for the future, at least the immediate 4 to 5 year future of this franchise. They can't just lay a stinker because there is so much invested in what they have right now. That's why this season is super important. I know every year is important, but to me, it's more important than last year. It's certainly more important than the season before.
And the issue is that even if the wheels do come off, I think there's still enough talent in that locker room to pick off, 5 or 6 wins at minimum. I just don't think they're going 3-14.
I don't disagree with that.
Again, you're never going to root for your team to lose, but if that were to happen, you could at least say, all right, obviously we need to hit the reset button here. We need a new coach. We need a new quarterback. We need everything, but I don't think that's going to happen. Like I feel like 5-12 is the absolute floor. Like they're going to find a way to win 5 games. They're just going to, probably 6 or 7. I have them at 7-10, which is on the pessimistic side. On the flip side, I will say, you say they could easily start 1-4, 1-5. To me, the key is those first 4 games. Get through those 4 games at 2-2.
Yeah.
That means you beat Carolina.
I agree. I agree with you.
Week 1's never a must win, but this is about as close as
it is a must win.
Given the schedule, the way it goes,
must win.
September, you got to find a way to win that one. And I think, I know you had Adam Chernoff on last week or week before, but he's really high on Carolina. I think they bounce back too. I just think they weren't as bad as they showed last year. That was a team where the wheels kind of came off. They're not terrible. They have a new coach. So you got to find a way to win that one. And then it's the next 3 games. Got to get one of them. You got to win in Dallas or Atlanta, or you got to beat Philly at home. If you can do that, okay, you're probably losing in Kansas City. I think that's pie in the sky. I think you're going to win that one. But if you could do that, then you're 2-3 coming home with 2 very winnable games over a 5-day stretch with Tampa Bay and with Denver. And then you have this opportunity where if you can have a good week at home, you're 4-3, and the back half of that schedule is so much more manageable.
Absolutely.
That's when you could start to build some momentum. But to me, the key is just get out of those first 4 weeks, get out of September at 2-2.
I can tell you right now, if this team is 3-3 after the Tampa Bay game, I'm going to have a completely different outlook on this team. I don't care, even if they play bad, even if they don't look that great, and people are still clamoring for Dennis Allen and talking stupid smack about Derek Carr, who is not the problem, by the way. Derek Carr is not the problem for this team. We can go on a tangent about that and probably will at some point. But, if they're 3-3 after the Tampa Bay game, I don't care how it goes. I don't care how they got to 3-3. I'm going to feel really good and optimistic about the potential of this team winning the division.
Jim, are we going to talk about his yardage total?
Sure. We'll end this segment on that. But first, before we end this segment on Derek Carr's yardage total, Gabe Henderson wants to know, and I had to look up who the guy was. That's how much I don't know crap about soccer. Who gets fired first, Dennis Allen or Greg Berhalter?
Well, Berhalter should have been fired 2 years ago. So let's start with that.
Tell them really quick who Greg Berhalter is.
Well, he's the USA soccer coach, and he got the job on the Peter Principle. His brother is on the board of directors for USA Soccer, and look, he did an okay job at first, and they made it out of the World Cup. I'm actually going to a USA Soccer game in Dallas in a couple weeks. It's my first one. I'm really excited for it, but
I'm excited for you.
I will boo the coach along with everyone else if they don't perform. I mean, I think Berhalter get fired this summer, so I'll go Berhalter on that.
I'll sleep through that. All right, yeah. Let's talk about real quick. The last thing we'll let you go after this. We were kind of texting back and forth about Derek Carr's yardage total, which was, you brought up Adam Chernoff, one of Adam Chernoff's best bets a few weeks ago. He threw it out there, the under Derek Carr, which at the time I think was like 37.50 passing
Might have
for
been
the season.
3,800. Yeah, it was
Somewhere around there. And he was throwing that out to clients as that was one of his top bets of the year. Again, and is Derek Carr even going to play 17 games with this offensive line? I don't know. We can get into all that. But now it has dropped to a really super ridiculously low number. What is it, 3,350?
I found it at 3,300.
3,300.
I don't place bets on the Saints because I covered the team, but if he does play all 17 games, you're telling me he's not going to get 200 yards a game?
Yeah, he's going to get 200 yards a game.
Now, obviously, I don't think you can bet that under anymore. Obviously, when you bet the over, you're kind of banking on him playing at least 14, 15 games.
I don't think you can touch it at all now. I really don't.
But 3,300 yards. I mean, he had 3,900 last year, right?
It just goes to show. Yeah, it goes to show how it's been pounded. There, look, people don't realize this out there. People who don't bet on a normal basis, just bet here and there and $5 for funsies, they don't realize how one person, and it's true, one or two people can change a number significantly, and it doesn't have to be by them betting $1 million on something. Certain people like Adam Chernoff, they throw out something, this is one of my best bets, it's going to make a number change. And in this case, it has. Derek Carr's over-under yardage total for the season. Again, I don't have to be a mathwitz to know that, again, as Zach said, that's not even 200 yards a game. And if he does play 17 games, he's going to be over. But I just don't know with this offensive line. And you and I kind of debated on whether you can count on an injury or factor that into whether you're going to bet a number or not. But I certainly don't trust Derek Carr to play 17 games because I don't. Unlike last year, Clint Kubiak's not going to be scared to make a change at quarterback and put Jake Haener in back there, in my opinion.
That's the difference is, are you, I don't care who you are, you might be a little more hesitant if, okay, Derek Carr can play, but he's at 70%. Or you throw in a guy who's never taken a career snap. Last year, you had Jameis Winston, who was a longtime starter in the NFL, and it made more sense to me then to say—
That didn't make any sense. That team didn't make any sense at all.
No, it didn't. But this year, you could at least be like, well, if Derek can go, let's let Derek go, because otherwise we're trying to beat the Chargers or whoever it is when he's hurt with a guy who's never taken a career snap. Like, I don't think that's the right way to go unless you have to. So, I don't know. I mean, Carr historically has been a healthy quarterback. He's very rarely missed games in his career. 3,300 to me seems—
I just don't think it's going to be his say, though, Zach. I think if they're in the same situations that they were in last year, I think there's an authoritative figure back there that's going to say, you ain't playing. If your ribs are broken or whatever it is and you shouldn't be playing, you ain't playing. I don't care. Look, for whatever reason, and they have this hate for Jameis Winston, obviously. I say it over and over again. But Jameis Winston isn't playing unless they absolutely has to. That's where they were last year, and which is why I don't know why they spent $8 million to re-sign him. It made no sense. I mean, you're better off playing a rookie back there. But I just don't think that's going to be the case this year. I think they're going to find ways actually to get. I think as we go along, we talk Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler or whatever, whoever the backup is. I think they're going to find ways to get him in to give him some playing time at different points.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, and we just don't know. I mean, we're speculating on what.
Of course, we are. That's what we do.
Is and things like that. Anyway, I just thought, if looking at this, that one has the pendulum has swung way too far the other way to 3,300 yards. I mean, come on. If the guy stays healthy, there isn't an NFL quarterback in the league who's going to go under 3,300 yards.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far. What did Bryce Young have last year? I don't even know.
Did he play 17? I think he played 16 in game ball started.
Wow. I don't know. 33.
See what he
live TV, folks. We're going to do it here on live TV.
Okay, so he had 28-77 playing 16 games.
Yeah,
so
I didn't think he had.
It's possible, but I mean, you're talking about the very bottom of the barrel there, too.
Yeah, Carr won't. Yeah, Gabe Blue just looked it up as well. All right. Well, we will certainly talk to you when we come back from vacation, and you're going to be in California for some part of that as well.
I don't know if I personally will be, but we'll have people there. We're still kind of deciding who. We got a house we rented, and so we got to decide who gets what bedroom when and all of that.
Who gets the master bedroom? Get out of Jeff Duncan's way. I mean, he's the old man. He needs the good bed, whatever it is, for sure. His back probably hurts. All right, Zach Ewing. We will talk to you most likely sometime in August. And enjoy your summer. I know you got a big baseball tournament you're going to this weekend. Try to stay cool.
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen, but I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Zach Ewing, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Dattitude podcast on this Wednesday morning. Well, it's not morning anymore. It's 12:05 as I talk to you live. See how fast time flies when you're having fun? You want to have some more fun? Let's get to today's extra point. But before we get there, I got to tell you a really quick story. I know you want to hear what do Caitlin Clark and Joey Chestnut have in common? Even if you're either going to 100% agree with me or you're 100% going to disagree with me. There is no middle ground, and I don't care. I feel like it needs to be thrown out there. We'll find out what happens. Before we get to today's extra point, let's continue our story about our friends at Evangeline Securities. We told you how it works, and we stressed that if you are thinking of selling your business, you won't find anyone in Louisiana. I mean, Louisiana. No one who can help you more than Evangeline Securities. Now, you might be wondering, you might be in a situation where you have been wondering what your business is worth. The truth is, you really can't know without the help of an expert. You can have Uncle Johnny down the street tell you, I think back 1974, we're talking about buying this place for like $800,000. No, you don't want to talk to Uncle Johnny. You don't want to talk to Aunt Susie or your friend who just sold his business, 4 years ago. You want to talk to Nick Braden and Ron Hemel because they are the experts. Not only will they go through an extensive evaluation to figure out that huge question weighing on your mind, but if and when you decide to proceed, they will then begin an extensive auction process. We told you about it. It involves established private equity funds from across the world. They will maximize the return process for the founder of your company and your family. And guess what? I won't even take credit for your success. You probably won't tell me about it, but I wouldn't gloat if you did. There are a few companies like Evangeline Securities in this area and none with their dedication to success. And beyond that, they are the top producer on their platform. They are fully licensed and ready to serve you so that no matter how rough a season the Saints have, optimistic, pessimistic, what are you? You'll be just fine. You'll be in great shape, even if that TV accidentally falls off the wall after a missed kick with 3 seconds left that would have sent the game into overtime. All you need to do is get in touch with Nick and Ron about what's really important. That is the rest of your life. You can find them at www.evangelinesecurities.com. All right, here we go. Feel free. Shower me with love. Shower me with hate. Shower me with whatever you want to shower. Pizza. Hot dogs. Oh, hot dogs. All right. For today's extra point, many of you have been wondering how in the world I am tying together a decorated eater and Joey Chestnut with rookie WNBA phenom Caitlin Clark. What could they possibly have in common, one might ask? One once ate 76 hot dogs in 10 minutes, while the other is the reigning women's college basketball player of the year. One dribbles milk down his shirt as he scarfs down as many calories in those 10 minutes as my fat ass eats in a week, and another dribbles the ball to a few feet from behind the three-point line and knocks down shots in the parking lot. But other than both finding the top of their respective sports, if you want to call what Chestnut does a sport, you kind of have to be in really good shape to be able to do what he does, right? Chestnut and Clark wouldn't on the surface have much in common. Except they do. Despite both being the face of their sports, whether you like it or not, they're being ostracized from the ultimate competition in each. Let's start with Chestnut, the 16-time champion of the Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest, which happens on Coney Island every 4th of July or thereabouts. He's being banned from this year's competition because he's signed to represent another hot dog brand, Impossible Foods. That's the name of the company, which is a company that makes plant-based hot dogs. Ew. So because he's signed with a company that supposedly competes with yours, he can't compete in your event? That would be like saying Patrick Mahomes can't play in the NFL because he represents Adidas and T-Mobile when the league is sponsored by Nike and Verizon. What about Clark? What's her deal? Well, this has nothing to do with sponsorship, we know. But the unquestioned face of women's basketball was left off the U.S. Olympic women's basketball team. Unquestioned, Derry. How can you say unquestioned? That's right, I said it. Any person who can lift attendance of a league to all-time highs in attendance and TV ratings, by far, I might add, in about a month, is the definition of, quote, face of a particular sport. In fact, 13,000 people attended the preseason debut of Clark with the Indiana Fever, and would have been more if the arena could have held them. Jersey sales are up 236% year over year. The WNBA app usage is up 613%. Attendance overall is up 156%, although I couldn't find specifically how much it went up in Indiana. Viewership as a whole is up more than 300%. The opening night game with Clark's Fever and the Connecticut Sun on May 14th was the single most watched game in league history with 2.34 million. More than any finals game, more than any other game, period. And Clark's next game against the New York Liberty was the second most watched in the 28-year existence of the WNBA. So don't give me any hogwash about the interest in the game being because of anyone else. Yes, that includes you too, Angel Reese. The people who watch this sport and want to see Clark play on the Olympic team, that's who they want on the team. She has more than done enough as a rookie to be on this team besides. But okay, you too, Nathans. Okay, Women's Olympic Basketball Committee, you go ahead and be stubborn. Leave off the faces of your respective sports. Let's see if anyone wants to see Darren Breeden and Nick Wary eat some hot dogs. Let's see who would rather watch 42-year-old Diana Taurasi than the one who has turned the league on the brink of being irrelevant into one that is watched daily by hundreds of thousands of people. It has been said death by 1,000 cuts can cause failure. It also appears it can happen with just 2. That's going to wrap it up for this Wednesday. It has been a fun show, always fun with Zach Ewing. Rocky says he won. Is that 1 million or 100,000? Shaw math. Got to do it. 100,000. Is that a real percentage? That's a lot. Rocky, you agree. There are just as many people out there who probably disagree. A-Town says he agrees. Thank you, buddy. Thanks to all of you out there. Again, part of the Dattitude family. We can't do this without you. We are growing leaps and bounds. Maybe Chestnut and Clark have helped the viewership of this show. I doubt it, but maybe. I wouldn't leave them off of my all-star team. I'm just saying. All right. Wednesday's over. We got one more show before vacay begins. It is Friday. It is with Luke Johnson. But first, again, I thank Zach Ewing. I always thank the great Gabe Henderson who's behind the scenes. We're getting some shorts ready for vacation. Just because we're going to be gone for a few weeks doesn't mean we're not going to have content. So you can come back and check out Dattitude. As always, a reminder to subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page. Click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live. You can subscribe to the podcast as well on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get major podcast platforms. Probably a better way to say it. I'm done. You can always find a replay of the show as well on NOLA.com/sports. We will see you on Friday. Everyone stay cool. Florida water. Get it on you. We'll talk to you Friday. Take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.